right, everybody, welcome back to the South Endzone. I am Chad. He is Tyler. 2 episodes this week. We're going to do a little preview of week 4. We touched on it a little bit earlier in the week where we just kind of went over the SEC matchups. We're going to get into it a little deeper. Before we do that, don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe. If you like what you're seeing, go ahead and give us a sub. We've seen a bunch of new folks coming through and checking out our videos. We'd love to have you subscribe and get the alerts whenever we put another episode out. So please do that. And also, please give us a like and share. If you got any other college football fans out there in your friend and family group, let them know. Let them know where you can get some really good analysis and just overall trash talking about SEC football superiority. And if you want to argue with us, go ahead. We've already had some of you show up in the comments in some of our previous videos, so we welcome that as well. But yeah, go ahead and do that. So Tyler, getting right into it. We went through last week's games already, but now it's time to get into it a little bit more. We're going to broaden things a little bit and step outside the SEC with our previews for this week. We don't really need to talk about you guys' game. You're playing UAB, so we're just going to skip right on over that one. If you guys lose that one, then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, then we'll talk.
We'll do a good review of it.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
But we've got LSU's got Arkansas coming into Death Valley, and it's going to look like this on Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern on I think it's on ESPN, and so we're excited about that. But that one, I think it could be closer than maybe what the spread. They're giving us like 17.5
exactly
as our giving Arkansas 17.5.
Yeah,
that might be a little much. Yeah, that's a lot. As impressive as the performance was last week, this rivalry goes back a long way, and it's one of those games that it can get out of hand from time to time, but it can also get really ugly and be closer than you want it to be if you're an LSU fan. But I want to get into a few of these other games with you because there's some really good top 25 games coming up this week. So let's jump right to the first one. That it's an 11 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. Florida State travels to the other Death Valley, not the real one, but
the fake one.
But the fake one kind. Yeah. They're only 2-point favorites against Clemson. And if you look at, they almost took it on the chin against Boston College. That game was a lot closer than I think a lot of people anticipated. And I know, you're going on the road. It's tough. But what do you think? Do you think Clemson's had a rough start to things? Do you think Clemson has enough to actually get it done against Florida State and keep their ACC championship hopes alive?
I don't. But so we talked on Picking Winners about this exact game, about why this line is only 2.5. And I think it has a lot to do with how Florida State ended up last week. And when you really talk about them going on the road to Boston College, which Boston College has like a thing where these bigger, nice, better road teams come into town, especially for like the Red Bandana game, which is like a very meaningful game for Boston College. Like they were going to get up for that game. So I actually like, honestly, that the books overreacted just a little bit to put this inside a field goal because I think that's how it's going to end up anyway. I don't think that Florida State's going to blow Clemson away. But this taking it inside a field goal, I'm with Florida State all the way in to cover 2.5 points.
Okay. And so not a top 25 game, but one that I definitely wanted to touch on a little bit. Auburn, Texas A&M. Who is Texas A&M at this point? They've got a couple of blowout wins and an ugly loss to Miami. What do you see? Connor Weigman really, really doing a good job at quarterback, but Auburn just has this way. First of all, Auburn's undefeated. Now they don't have like a daunting schedule so far this year, but going into College Station, it's the SEC. This is why it's so crazy, especially when you're dealing with, if it's not Georgia or Alabama or some years LSU, these games right here can go 7 different ways. Mm-hmm. So what do you see here? How do you like this one?
7 different ways. Auburn has won 3 out of the last 5 matchups straight up against these guys. Same with the spread, 3-2 against the spread in the last 5 in this matchup. I mean, Auburn's getting plus 8.5. I mean, that's inside
Right.
a touchdown, given, like you said, this matchup can go 6 different ways. Um, the last, 4 out of the last 5 have been within a touchdown. They've been within 8 points.
Mm.
So, to me, I think this is gonna be a close one. I think that Auburn's 3-0. It's a really not shoddy 3-0. They played Cal. I think it was Samford
Yep.
and, who was and UMass. So,
Right.
this is Auburn's first actual team they played. Texas A&M did play Miami and lost. So what does
Mm-hmm.
that tell you about Texas A&M's
Right. Right.
ability to be able to play a team with any talent?
Right. Right.
I mean, so I like Auburn at least to cover plus 8.5 here for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at. I think this is gonna be inside that spread. It's just I don't want to call a side because I think
Yeah.
Texas A&M they could put it together. I still think there's enough talent on that roster with these couple of recruiting classes the last couple of years, and with the talent that Jimbo Fisher inherited a couple of years ago. I think that there's reason to be optimistic for them, but they just seem to find a way to mess it up. That's why I say Texas 8-4 is always going to be funny until they prove otherwise. Because when you say Texas 8-4, it sounds like an insult. It's just a description.
It's just
That's
the
like
truth.
kind of the best that y'all can hope for is 8-4.
It ain't
So
mean if
just
it's
take it.
true.
Right. So moving right along, we scroll down a little bit and we come up on this doozy right here. Colorado, Oregon,
Mm,
Coach Prime going into Eugene, where it's just crazy and bright neon colors
yeah.
and a 21-point spread with a 69.5 over under. What
Oh
are
God,
we
it
talking
dropped.
about here? Listen, man,
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I see this under the number. Like I see
Hmm.
this game being a much lower scoring game than that
Yeah.
69.5 suggests. Um, and I actually think Colorado keeps this one a lot closer.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. So I'll break you down why. Let's go real quick to the Oregon schedule.
Okay.
So this is something I don't think people have dug into too much. All right. Oregon is 3-0, right? Wow, that's amazing. Portland State,
80.
81-7.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Texas Tech at Texas Tech, they won 38-30.
Oh shit.
And then Hawaii, they won 55-10. But it's Hawaii. So let's
Yeah.
get into this little Texas Tech game here, and let's look at how this game actually broke down. So how do we start this game off? Texas Tech up 7-0. Then Oregon gets a couple of touchdowns. Now Texas Tech is back. They don't tie it up because Oregon had gone for 2, and then Texas Tech went for 2 to try to tie it up and failed. Then Oregon gets a field goal, but then right before the or right after the half, going into the fourth quarter, Texas Tech is up 27-18 going into the fourth quarter in this game. So, and let's look at Texas Tech. Now Oregon just poured it on in the fourth quarter and outscored them, 20-0 or 20-3 for the fourth quarter to run away with it. But this is Texas Tech's schedule so far. They have that loss to Oregon. Their win this year is against Tarleton State, and they lost at Wyoming 35-33. So I'm saying all that to say
Wow.
Oregon is not the juggernaut that everyone is making them out to be. And I think this 21-point spread is Dion hater bait.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That's
That's what I
you
think this
listen.
is.
I was about ready to be like, "What are you talking about?" And then, I think you've talked some sense into me. Because I like my thought was more about the Colorado defense, like giving up like 40 points to TCU at the beginning of the year, and also, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they did give up points to Colorado State in that game. I mean, this is also, without Travis Hunter, mind you, which I
Mm-hmm.
mean is one of their best offensive and defensive weapons. Um, I do agree that 21, I mean, 3 touchdowns is absolutely absurd. Like, we're not even
Mm-hmm.
saying that Colorado's going to win. We're just saying
Right.
you're just saying it's going to be closer than this appears.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that over under, like, I feel like it's going to end like right around that. Like, it's either going to be like 68 or like 72 or
Yeah.
like, or
I
like
wouldn't
even in the,
bet it.
yeah.
I would not
either.
bet it. I would avoid it. I'm just saying, like, I have a feeling I'm not going to be surprised at all if it ends up being like a 35-28,
Yeah.
35-30 kind of game where it ends up under that number, because I could see these two teams recognizing their defensive deficiencies, because look at what Oregon did against Texas Tech too.
Yeah.
Like, the only other real team that they played, they got 30 points hung on them.
Yeah,
And
20 in a quarter.
You see the kind of numbers that Shedeur Sanders is putting up. I know no Travis Hunter. That's going to be a difficulty, but I see this one going, staying closer. And I think one of the ways that happens is that maybe these teams are playing a little bit more, feel things out for the first quarter or two, and not necessarily throwing haymakers at each other.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it could be really, really hype because of all the hype around it. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I said, like, I would definitely, I would lean under for sure, but I wouldn't like officially. I mean, that's kind of like what we were talking about picking winners. I think we both would lean under here, just because of Colorado may stall a little bit on offense.
Right.
And but yeah, I think that it's gonna have to be closer than that number appears.
All right, so you got the Colorado Oregon game now. What are we feeling here about this UCLA Utah game? I think that this Utah -6. I think that's kind of a decent number, especially Cam Rising coming back and playing. If he's healthy enough to like really make a difference in this game. Utah's been really good without him. I really like Utah this year to be kind of a sleeper playoff team, and this game against UCLA is going to be a real nice matchup. I don't know if I want to pick one way or the other necessarily, but I kind of like Utah definitely to win this game. But that number, 6 points, no Cam Rising is going to be tough to overcome, because I mean it's Chip Kelly, UCLA. He's going to have his team prepared, and they're going to be bringing some wrinkles.
Yeah, I mean, and you can get them. You can get Utah -5.5 on FanDuel too. There's certain books you can get them probably 5.5. But UCLA has played San Diego State. They have played. I don't even know what this team is. I'm blanking on who this team is.
Who?
I'm looking at UCLA's. Like they played Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, and then this unknown team whose name will not pop up for me.
Oh, North Carolina Central.
There you go. Because like what I've ever, no offense to all the millions of North Carolina Central fans that are watching this show right now, but that's kind of like my point, is that like I think this is like UCLA's first big game. They only beat Coastal Carolina 27-13, which I feel like that's like a closer score than they probably would have wanted. San Diego State, they did beat pretty handily 35-10 in North Carolina Central. They ran away with it.
Right. And well, as they should, right?
As they should, exactly. I mean, Utah -5.5, you might be able to buy it down to like 5, 4.5. That's not a bad look. But I think, like you said, Utah, like as far as like straight up, Utah with or without Cam Rising is definitely the team here. No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really good defense, and if they get Cam Rising back in a meaningful way where he's 100% healthy, are we going to have? We have nothing from. Well, we don't have any evidence to suggest. We'll have to find out about that. But yeah, I would recommend anybody who's thinking about putting anything down on this one to go look at the injury report and make sure that Rising is not just playing but healthy to where he's actually, you maybe want to look at pregame warmups and everything to see if he's out there moving around. While we're staying on that same spot on the page here, Ole Miss at Alabama. We went over this one a little bit earlier this week, and I think Jalen Milroe comes out and plays better than he has been, and certainly he can't play any worse than Tyler Buckner or
no, he really
Ty
can't.
Sampson did. Like that was terrible. But with all that said, is it enough? And the other things that we saw, Alabama getting whipped up front, both offensively and defensively, do they have enough? And is Lane Kiffin like you listen to some of the stuff that Lane Kiffin was saying? does he smell blood in the water?
For sure.
Or is he just really stepping in it yet again like Lane Kiffin does? Like, I don't know, because it's not necessarily a guarantee that if Lane Kiffin starts running his mouth that it's going to cost him.
Yeah.
Sometimes he actually gets it done.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So I
like,
don't know.
Death taxes and Lane Kiffin running his mouth, but this time actually, like, there is some substance,
Right.
behind what he is saying. Like, he doesn't have nothing backing him up. I mean, 7
Mm-hmm.
points over, and I like the over here too. It's 55.5. I
Yeah,
think
for
just
sure.
that Ole Miss offense alone is
Yep.
gonna, like you said, Alabama's getting beat up front with a high-powered offense like Ole Miss,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just saying I like that over
And
off
that,
the jump, and
yeah,
then I
and
think it's gonna be close. I don't
yeah, and I
necessarily think
think
that
they're
Ole
going to
Miss is
get
gonna
enough.
win,
Right.
but +7 is a nice number.
Yeah, and I think they're going to do enough too
Mm-hmm.
with Milroe at quarterback, even that it can run this number up. Where, I mean, 55 is not crazy.
No.
A 30-28 or somewhere in that neighborhood is not out of the question for sure. So scrolling on down, I agree with you there. BYU Kansas, this is like one of those little sneaky, quiet, nobody really talks about it. 3-0 teams, both in
Yeah.
the Big 12 now. This could be like a Big 12 championship, stumbling
Yeah.
block for one or the other, and a boost for the other one. And you've got a decent quarterback matchup, and we haven't really seen Jalen Daniels do his real thing. So I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see how Kansas handles this at home. 9.5-point favorites.
That's a
That
lot.
seems steep, even
That
at
seems very
home. Like
steep.
that. This is two good teams. We still don't really know what to expect out of Arkansas,
Yeah.
because they let this BYU team beat them, but they had BYU in a good spot and they just couldn't take care of it. So does BYU turn the ball over, or do they take care of it, and can they score enough to run away from to keep Kansas from running away from them? I don't know, but I don't like that number. 9.5 seems steep. I'm just going to be watching this one. I don't really have
Yeah.
like a
I
take
wouldn't put
on where
money
it's
on
going to go.
this. Me
No, me
neither.
neither. I'm
It's
just
just a big
interested in it.
number.
Yep. UTSA Tennessee.
Hey.
UTSA looked terrible against Army. They should have won that game, and they kind of choked it. But Tennessee did the same thing with Florida. They're heavy favorites on the road, went into the swamp, and proved yet again that they can't win in the swamp. Do they have a letdown against a team that they're probably underestimating, or is it just too much talent on that Tennessee roster for UTSA to contend with?
I mean, UTSA, like Connor and I once again talked about this very game on picking winners, and UTSA was a covering machine. I believe it was last year, if not the year before. So their defense, UTSA has a better defense than people might be aware of. So they might keep this game a little tighter. Now we could have Tennessee running away with it like they did against UVA, but then you could also have them having to fight it out like they did against Austin Pete's. It's like you said, it's Jekyll and Hyde when we come to Tennessee balls.
Yeah,
Um,
and Joe Milton
yeah,
is under a little bit of scrutiny right now
yeah,
because he did not play well at all, and there's a lot of questions surrounding him. And how does he respond to that? Does he come out guns blazing, or does he kind of go into a shell and maybe like just kind of
yeah.
get in his own head?
I
I don't know.
mean, to be fair, I was never buying into Joe Milton hype to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never once, like, no offense, like, I never once thought that he was going to be like. There's
Right.
a reason that Hendon Hooker was the starter,
Well,
and
and Milton didn't have a great start at Michigan either. Like
yeah,
that's why he ended up
like
transferring to Tennessee. Part of it
throwing
anyway.
them, like, you can talk about throwing the ball 100 yards, but like he needs to hit the receiver that's 30 yards away.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like, I never bought into the hype on Joe Milton. I'm happy to have him prove me wrong, because when Tennessee is good, the SEC benefits from it greatly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like UTSA is, I think it's the line is like up to 21.5 now. That's like
Yep.
entirely possible for them to cover. I'm just saying.
Right. And you want him to prove you wrong, just not necessarily.
Yeah.
Oh wait, y'all don't. Yeah, not necessarily on November 18th at Neyland Stadium.
Nope.
Just don't want him to prove you wrong there.
No.
All right, gotcha. Understood. All right, so this is one people probably don't think this is that interesting. I think it's interesting because Oklahoma State just got boat raced, absolutely snockered by South Alabama, 33-7 last week. And Mike Gundy could be in trouble. I don't know. He's a man. Talk to him. But Oklahoma State, Iowa State. Here's my angle on this one. The over-under is at 34 or 35.5. Oklahoma State just failed to eclipse the 7-point mark against South Alabama. And Iowa State, I don't think they've scored 20 points all year. Can they get within like 2 touchdowns of this over? I don't know. Like I can't help but want to smash. I actually, if I'm doing anything, I'm probably looking for a way to tease this down.
Yeah.
And get better money on it. Get like a plus 200 for like can I do a 27.5 over under?
That'd be crazy.
And get like plus 200 on it? Like I might do that because I just don't see these two teams scoring. I may be completely wrong. I don't know, but like this is two offenses that have struggled and two defenses, especially like Iowa State has a really good defense and they don't seem to want to score necessarily. So it shouldn't be that difficult to hit this under pretty easily. So that's kind of the thing I'm looking at. But I'm also looking at is Mike Gundy. You have a handful of these coaches that made their hay all the way through the 2000s as like dominant coaches. And now you're starting to see like these little signs of the game's passing them by or whatever you want to call it. But Mike Gundy, Dabo Swinney at Clemson, Saban at Alabama. Like there's a new guard kind of replacing these guys. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how Gundy handles that. Because he's got a lot to answer for losing that game at home to South Alabama, 33-7.
His son's one of the quarterbacks too. And
right.
So we'll see if that has anything to do with anything.
And he did not have a good game. No, he was like 5 for 14 for like 70 yards or something like that. It was bad.
It looks like they've played all 3 quarterbacks. Looking at they've played everybody, so it's up for debate who's going to actually play that game.
Right. This other one, just briefly, if Rice can do better at South Florida than Alabama did, that would be just hilarious. And you got your old boy JT Daniels, your guy who wasn't your guy, but somehow you found a way to win with Stetson Bennett instead of the 5-star. You won with a walk-on. Can Rice with JT Daniels at quarterback outdo South Florida?
Yeah, they're 2.5-point favorites in South Florida. I don't see why not.
Yeah,
like you said, you have like
that's almost as close as the game with Alabama was until they punched a very, very late last play of the game touchdown.
Just to make the score look better on paper.
Just to make it look better. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, as I said, JT Daniels, a journeyman. You talk about Josh McCown, the journeyman, Ryan Fitzpatrick, but we have JT Daniels, who has now played for USC, University of Georgia, West Virginia, and now Rice. Will he play at a good school? I don't know, but. Was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, was a top 5, if not, top 5 quarterback coming out of high school. So, I mean, hey, he's playing at Rice. He's playing against South Florida. I bet that he might have better numbers than those 2 quarterbacks at Alabama.
He's like the 2023 version of Lindsey Scott. Do you remember Lindsey Scott from last year? So Lindsey Scott was a 2015 recruit by Les Miles at LSU, and he played for – I'm gonna mess up some of them, but he played for LSU, Nichols, UTSA, Incarnate Word, and a few others. Anyway,
wow!
He played 7 years for 5 different schools.
Oh
wow! And last year, he was one of RG3's guys who he was mentioning as like a Heisman contender. Because at Incarnate Word, he had like almost 5,000 yards, 60 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions.
Oh,
in his 7th and final season. So maybe JT Daniels will have that kind of final year of eligibility. Who knows? All right, so another one that I was looking at that I was kind of interested in, this Liberty Florida International game might not jump out at a lot of people, but Liberty's favored by 10 on the road, and Liberty and FIU are like 3-0 and 3-1, and like contenders for the Conference USA championship this year. And so I'm just interested to see how that one goes. Nothing really to talk about there. I'm just going to be watching that one.
Yeah.
We already talked about Arkansas and LSU. Let's go to Oregon State, Washington State. Again, a road favorite by 3 points in a top 25 matchup. Oregon State is favored in this one. Just another thing to watch. The Pac-12 actually has a pretty decent slate of teams this year and some good games. So we're just going to have to see if one of these other teams that nobody's been talking about can actually upend USC and Oregon and Utah and those guys to see if they can actually claim that crown. Because I think if you have enough of those other teams beating each other up, you could have an Oregon State or Washington State just kind of percolate to the top. We've seen it before.
I mean, I will say this. It's only right in the Pac-12's twilight season that
it's actually good.
That it's good, right? You know what I mean? Like you know, that every you know, people on the East Coast were up till 2 a.m. watching Colorado State go to double overtime. Like, you know, in their swan song of a season, you might as well have one of the better seasons you've had in a little bit as a conference.
You've got 3 like legit Heisman Trophy candidate quarterbacks: Cameron Rising, Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix Jr. And you could throw Bo Nix into that possibly, like depending on how like.
Shedeur Sanders is a Heisman as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, I wasn't even counting him because it's like Colorado just seems so weird to be in the Pac-12. But like you're right. I was thinking like the traditional Pac-12. But yeah, you're right. It's like the whole Heisman slate is coming out of the Pac-12 just about. But that's actually what they usually do because they have all these like glitzy skill players and they play no defense, and so they can put up gaudy numbers. And then they get to the NFL and they just like fall flat on their face.
No, it's true. I feel like in years out, like half of the Heisman, like early Heisman candidates are like all the Pac-12 quarterbacks, and then like a couple running backs from the SEC.
Running backs also out of the Pac-12.
Right. A wide receiver randomly, maybe a DB for no reason.
Yeah, well, it's a DB who like he just has a few pick sixes and he's returning some kicks or something like that. But, all right, so.
App State
and Wyoming, a battle of teams that had a chance to do something really special and failed to do so. App State got a lot closer to beating North Carolina than Wyoming did to beating Texas, but they were both in close games in the second half. And this one's just going to be a cool game to watch. Wyoming is favored at home by 3 points. And what were you saying about App State earlier? That
just like they're a great road dog, man. Like just in general,
road dog.
Like, when you see them go on the road against the teams, like think about like historically, they've gone into College Station, right? They've gone into
College Station.
Yep, they've gone
and into Ann Arbor.
And into Ann Arbor. Yeah,
they won at Ann Arbor. That was the big game. That was when who was the coach? Was it Rich Rodriguez or was it?
Well, I think it was Rich Rod for Michigan.
Yeah,
I think it was
when they beat them.
Weren't they supposed to be like weren't they looking to be national champs?
Yes.
That year? Like,
yes. Yes.
Like, so I'm just saying
that was the Damian Robinson team too. That was so they were supposed to be really good.
App State is 1-0 against the spread away and 1-0 as an underdog. So I'm just saying. I think that they might not win.
1-0 straight up as an underdog. You said
no. I said against the spread.
Oh, against the spread.
Because I think they were only underdog against North. They're straight up. They were underdog only against North Carolina. So
okay.
But I'm just saying, I think that App State can cover +3 against Wyoming.
Right. All right. So UAB Georgia, we already talked about that. We're not going to talk about that one because this one right here, this might be the marquee matchup.
Yeah, those two right there.
Up to this point in the season, possibly. I don't know that there's a better one. You could maybe make the argument for the LSU Florida State or the Alabama Texas game, but this one right here, this is going to be fun. I like Notre Dame. I like Sam Hartman in this game.
I like the under.
That's actually not a bad play either. I think this could be very much like, let's not blow this game early. Let's not make mistakes early. And then if we have to, we'll we'll try to light it up in the second half, but we're not going to. Yeah, I could see that. I could see it being low scoring first half, and then maybe things start to open up a little bit in the second half.
55 and a half. Like, there's a lot of room for a great game under 55 points.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
like, you know, and like
27-24 is still under that number.
Exactly.
And that's still a great game. That
like,
could be multiple lead changes in the second half and still be 27-24.
And this just doesn't feel like a typical Ohio State team coming out of the gate this year.
No, it does not.
Like, it is like, you know, I think they were like, I don't know if they're still doing this because I'd be lying if I said they're keeping up, but I know that they're still figuring out starting quarterbacks, or is that like, have they established a starter? I know against Indiana they played 2 quarterbacks, like because they hadn't established.
Yeah, that I don't know. That would be a good question for us to ask either Drew or Jeremiah. So I'll
fair enough. And then also like got out of the gates rough against Youngstown State, 35-7, and then also once again got out of the gates slow against Western Kentucky. So like, and Notre Dame like have played Central Michigan, beat the crap out of North Carolina State, and then played Tennessee State. So I mean, this is like the first big game for either one of these teams, and it's a great, you know. I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
I like the under, and I would favor Notre Dame if I had to pick a side, but I'm not gonna. So I like the under.
Likewise, I would too. So right below that, you see Iowa and Penn State. This one's interesting. Like I don't understand how Iowa is in the top 25. I realize they're 3-0. But do you realize the dogfight they were in against a very bad Utah State team a couple of weeks ago? Let's pull that up real quick.
And this is by the way, this is the whiteout game at night in Happy Valley.
Oh yeah, good luck. And this is 15-point dogs. Iowa is going into Happy Valley. So Utah State opening weekend, they won 24-14. Now listen, I'm not one to be super critical of week 1 performances because look, I've got this big LSU logo behind me and on my shirt. So, like, we didn't have a great week 1 either, but we were actually playing somebody. Utah State is terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw this weekend.
I took them to cover. I took them to cover.
But Utah State, I took them to cover in this Iowa game because I didn't think Iowa could score enough points to get to cover their end of the spread. But Air Force beat them 39-21. They beat Idaho State, which I don't even know. Are they Division III? Are they even FCS? I don't know. Idaho State. I guess they're an FCS school.
Oh, you're asking the wrong guy.
Utah State is not good, and Iowa had their hands full with them. This game was, Iowa was up by 2 touchdowns, and then it wasn't. Okay, that's right, because they threw like a pick 6. It was either a pick 6 or they threw it. They had a turnover in a really bad spot and set Iowa up. Otherwise, it would have been a better game. But anyway, I'm not a big fan of this Iowa team. I don't think they can score very much. And so when you combine all that with the fact that Penn State is playing really well, and this is kind of like, I think Penn State fans and I think that program is kind of expecting this to be their year. Like there's some real high expectations around them possibly winning the Big Ten and upsetting a whole bunch of people who love Ohio State and Michigan, and maybe even being a playoff contender.
Yeah, it's, Penn State has unfortunately had to live in the shadows of Ohio State and Michigan, and it's all crazy because they're all 3 on the same. You talk about, like LSU, Bama, Auburn, all of them being on one side of the SEC. Well, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State are all on the same side of the Big Ten. So it's like you have to always go through those 2 if you want to if you want to play for a Big Ten championship, and then if you want to be a national contender, you know what I mean? But so Connor and I were talking about it, and we know that Iowa is, an enemy of the over. However, they did just they show they can score. They put up 41 against Western Michigan. That doesn't say much, but it does show they can put the ball in the end zone.
Right.
Against another team on the field. That is the bottom line. You know what I mean? So it's only 40.5. Penn State, after they struggled a little bit against Illinois in the start of their game last week, they had a day game. But this is Penn State night game, whiteout, Happy Valley. I have been there, one of the loudest stadium. I think it would rival LSU, one of the loudest stadium experiences.
Yeah, we just do it more than one weekend a year. This is fair.
This is fair. Listen, This is fair. I won't say that. I won't deny that. But Happy Valley for the whiteout game is a different place entirely to play.
Yeah.
So I like the over 40.5 just for
I would just say for the if you're gonna challenge Penn State, Happy Valley versus LSU, if you're gonna, Death Valley versus Happy Valley, if you're gonna make that comparison, what you got to do is you got to go to a whiteout game for Penn State against a really good opponent, and then you got to come watch an LSU Alabama or LSU Florida home game.
I would
or something like that. Like it's got to be one of those. I wouldn't. The crazy thing is, I know you're a Georgia fan, and I would, the most likely scenario is you coming for a Georgia game in Death Valley.
Yep, I'd come down.
I don't even know that it would be on the same level because we don't have the level of hatred for you guys that we do for Florida and Alabama fans, or even Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I don't, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, maybe Arkansas. But even then, it's still not like that level of hatred. We hate Ole Miss. I mean, when you have a whole, go to hell Ole Miss cheer that the entire stadium will get into, like it's, it's some next level hatred there. But yeah, that's going to be a lit atmosphere, a whiteout for that game, even though it's against Iowa. I still think it's going to be it's going to be a lit atmosphere, and so Iowa's going to really be up a creek. Memphis and Missouri, this one just interesting because it's 2 3-0 teams. Missouri favored by 6 after that shocking game winner from 61 yards out after a delay of game, pushed them back 5 yards, and they kicked the field goal anyway on the road against Kansas State. That was at home.
That was at home.
Yeah, because they did charge the field. Yeah.
Yes, they did. Of course.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. All right, because you just win a game now and you just charge the field. Like it doesn't matter anymore. So I don't want to call anything on this one, but I think it's an interesting one to pay attention to this weekend. The point being here, there's so many really good games to pay attention to this weekend.
Many.
I'm not going to be able to look away from the TV. You wanted to talk about North Carolina Pitt. I didn't really have much on this one. Drake May has not played his best game yet this year. Nope. He's 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, and only 890 yards. Like he's still just kind of finding his way. They played a couple of decent defenses. What do you think about this one going into Pittsburgh?
Yeah, they did fumble a little bit against App State, but they also did beat Minnesota 31-13, and we saw what their defense did to South Carolina. So that enough to me, like this, and Pitt just, backyard brawl, lost to West Virginia. So they'll be reeling a little bit on their heels. I mean, this is once again an in-conference matchup. So we talk about Florida State being the front runner for the ACC. I think UNC is right behind them as far as the ACC is concerned. But I like UNC 7.5. I might see if you can get to 6.5. But honestly, like 7.5 is not crazy. I think UNC might beat the brakes off Pittsburgh. That might be crazy
it's possible.
To say.
And if Drake May plays a good
how
game,
he can,
he plays like he's capable of. It's a whole different deal. Yeah, and the other thing I'll say too about. We talked about Florida State being the class, and that's why it's so interesting to watch as the seasons play out, is you can never trust your eyes week 1.
Nope.
And I would have said, oh, that Florida State team is legit. Now what I look at is I'm like, we played so bad. We made so many stupid mistakes. We gave them so many opportunities. I'm not saying they're not good. But look at how they played. They almost lost to Boston College this weekend.
Yeah.
And that's not a great Boston College team. So what I find really interesting is if Florida State doesn't go get the job done at Clemson this weekend, you can say whatever you want about everything else. But how do you not have Clemson and North Carolina as the front runners then for the ACC? And Florida State looking at an uphill battle to try to get back into it.
Yeah. I mean,
because all it takes is Duke stubbing their toe somewhere along the way and ending up with 2 losses, and Clemson can win the ACC without having to worry about that early loss. You can't trust your eyes week 1.
I would love anybody but Clemson to win the ACC.
I would too. Lie. Yeah.
Like Jesus, give me anybody but Clemson. They don't. They're not that good. No offense, like to anybody, but like You don't want to like they don't they they have regressed. They have met their time of regression. That's fine. But like, give me not Clemson. I would love to see
Right.
Florida. I would love to see Florida State or UNC. Shit, if Duke won the ACC, that'd be insane.
That would
Like
be crazy.
that'd be crazy.
The
Anybody
Cameron
but
crazies would
Clemson.
be we go nuts.
But they can't claim like all the teams that their football team stinks. Like, oh, we're a basketball school. Could you imagine
Right.
Duke being a good football team? Like, come on.
That would be crazy.
Like it's like when Kentucky starts losing, it's like, oh, basketball season. You know what I mean? Like,
and look, I get it because with basketball, you only need to recruit like 10 good kids,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you've got a roster. Football, you need like 80.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's a lot tougher. That's why the ones that do it in football are a lot more impressive. But hopefully you guys will enjoy this upcoming weekend. We finally get a good full slate of games this
I know.
weekend where
It's
like
great.
it's nonstop. I'm gonna be loving. I started YouTube TV, and I'm loving every minute of it. Quad boxing on two different TVs
Yep.
is just amazing, and it's something it's a sight to behold, and I'm going to be enjoying every minute of it. And I've got the pork belly that I'm going to start preparing tomorrow in order to have it ready for Saturday. My dad's coming over. He's marinating steaks. It's going to be just a family affair where we are going to smoke some hog, and we're also going to live it up eating some good steaks. So
I love it,
what
man.
do you got planned for that juggernaut matchup with UAB?
Not much. I'll tell you, we're just gonna watch and just hope that we don't screw around too much. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Listen, the stadium's
probably
gonna
screw
look
around
like
enough and still get away with it.
Yeah, the stadium's gonna look like it is gonna be behind me. A night game in Sanford, when they with the lights going and Teenage Wasteland by the Who, going. I mean, I'm just saying. Great.
Oh, out here in the fields.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
right,
I'm
let's
just
go.
saying. It's a Georgia experience.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We want to remind you again, if you liked what you saw here, give us a like, give us a share with all your college football friends and family, all the fans that you know who might enjoy some good old SEC talk. But as you can see, we're not one dimensional. We can get into the other conferences, and we recognize talent when we see it, and we recognize a real threat when we see it to the SEC dominance that has been showing itself for the last 20 some odd years. But I mean, look, we kind of would like some competition. Y'all just have to rise to the occasion. But no, share it with anybody you can. And then also, of course, if you aren't already, go ahead and give us a sub, subscribe to the channel, and then you'll get all the alerts whenever we post another episode. And with that, we will bid you adieu. It is the South Endzone. I am Chad, and he is Tyler, and we are out of here. Peace, y'all.